After Donald Trump's lawyers were admonished following their closing argument where they made improper statements to the jury, it was the prosecution's turn. The prosecution had previously informed the judge that their closing argument was going to take approximately 4.5 hours. It took that and perhaps even longer. Closing arguments concluded around 8 p.m. into the evening on Tuesday night. But folks, the jury was wide awake. They were paying attention. They actually requested to stay there to hear the prosecutor conclude the closing argument, which is I think, interesting and important sign. And the prosecution did not disappoint in their closing argument. While it was long, it was very, very detailed, and it went through, get this, the documents, the evidence, the phone calls, the photographs, the bank records, the handwritten notes, one by one by one. The prosecutor, Joshua Steinglass, did not miss a beat, did not miss an exhibit, did not miss any of the meandering arguments made by the defense lawyers. Each thing had a rebuttal. Each thing that was stated by the defense had an explanation by the prosecution. And beyond that, it had logic, it had corroboration, it had the facts and law on its side. Here is how the prosecution concluded to the jury. And this was around 8 p.m. Eastern time. Very soon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it will be time for you to deliberate. In the interest of justice and in the name of the people of the state of New York, I ask you to find the defendant, Donald J. Trump, guilty. And with that, the jury left for the evening. The jury will return 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, where instructions will be provided and deliberations will commence. One of the things that I love that the prosecution did was they almost mocked Donald Trump and Trump's lawyers. Like Joshua Steinglass, the prosecutor, looked at the jury and said, "Can you believe that to this day, at closing argument, I couldn't believe it. They were still trying to argue that the payment to Michael Cohen was for actual legal expenses for services rendered and not for a reimbursement, despite the fact that document after document states that this was a reimbursement." The prosecutor, Joshua Steinglass, said to the jury, and the jury was laughing at this, he goes, "I was actually surprised that they were still going with that, but I don't know. I guess they think you're just going to ignore all of the documents, but that was a surprise to me." Like, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, let's take a look at this document. And for those who watch the MeidasTouch Network, we told you this document was coming out. By the way, this document was presented during earlier testimony, like the testimony of Trump's controller, Jeff McConney, but it came out in a big way in the closing argument where the prosecutor says, look at Donald Trump's own admission. This is his signature in a 2018 United States Office of Government Ethics report. If you look at the bottom of this page, it says Note 3 to Part 8. OGE, the Office of Government Ethics, has concluded that the information related to the payment made by Mr. Cohen, Michael Cohen, is required to be reported and that the information provided meets the disclosure requirement for a reportable liability. Trump's lawyers didn't even address this document at all in their closing. They thought they were going to pull a fast one over the jury. But the prosecutor, Joshua Steinglass, said, okay, let's turn to instructions for Part 8. And let's take a look at the footnote, which says, in the interest of transparency, while not required to be disclosed as reportable liabilities on Part 8, in 2016, expenses were incurred by one of Donald J. Trump's attorneys, Michael Cohen. Mr. Cohen sought reimbursement of those expenses, and Mr. Trump fully reimbursed Mr. Cohen in 2017. The category of value would be $100,001 to $250,000, and the interest rate would be 0. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Donald Trump signed that this was a reimbursement in 2018. That's his signature right there. But ladies and gentlemen of the jury, why don't we play the tape so you can hear the recording, which shows in Donald Trump's own words his cavalier willingness to enter into the hush money deal with the National Enquirer, with AMI, to pay off Karen McDougal. You'll hear Donald Trump's voice. He states he wanted to pay cash. This shows, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that he was actively engaging in a scheme to influence the election. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, let's take a look at the call logs. And then the prosecutor went call log by call log and showed the flurry of messages between Weisselberg and Cohen and Hope Hicks and Keith Schiller over and over again. On October 23rd, there was a rare call from Alan Weisselberg, and on a Sunday, no less. That's 3 days before Michael Cohen opened up the bank account for the shell company in order to execute the payoff. Adam Klasfeld, who did a great job reporting in the courtroom throughout this trial, as he always does, talked about how the prosecutor, Joshua Steinglass, led the jurors through the, quote, crazy flurry of phone and text activity in the days leading up to the payoff on October 26, 2016. One of the things that the prosecutor says that there is a reason that the sex happened with Stormy Daniels in 2006 and the payoff happened in October 2016. That's because, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the concern here was the election, not Donald Trump's family. And the prosecutor led jurors through another flurry of phone calls, emails, and other messages inside Trump world on November 4th, 2016, in response to the Wall Street Journal inquiry about Karen McDougal. The slideshow illustrates the enormous amount of activity with Hicks, Schiller, Cohen, Pecker, Dylan Howard, Keith Davidson, and others in the fallout over the Wall Street Journal story about McDougal. Hope you're getting all of this, the prosecutor joked. Amid a dizzying barrage of information, a juror seems to smile. Then one of the things that the prosecutor did on the next slide, the Steinglass called Alan Weisselberg and Jeff McConney's hidden handwritten notes about reimbursement scheme, the smoking gun documents. And you can take a look right here at the smoking gun. And this is what the prosecutor said. He goes, "I'm almost speechless that the defense is still trying to make the argument that the payments from 2017 were for legal services rendered." Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, take a look at the handwritten notes. It quite literally says grossed up. And it takes the amount when you add the Red Finch payments of $50,000 to the $130,000 payments, you gross it up times 2 for tax purposes, and then you eventually get to that $420,000 number. It's literally right there, the scheme in black and white. The prosecutor notes that Jeff McConney, Trump's controller, testified that he wasn't aware of any other Trump organization payment that was grossed up for taxes like this. The prosecutor then looked at the jury and said, "Here's a question for you. Is there anything you've learned about Donald Trump during this trial that would make you think that he would pay twice the amount of what he owed if he wasn't involved in a tax scheme like this?" A couple of jurors appeared to smile at that line. You see, folks, the prosecution was keeping the jurors' attention despite the fact that this closing argument was more than 4 hours in length. Then the prosecutor, Joshua Steinglass, called one of his favorite emails, this one from Michael Cohen from February 14th, 2017. He says, this is an email from Michael Cohen, February 14, 2017, saying, "Please remind me of the monthly amount to people working in the Trump organization because Cohen was not actually billing for services rendered. He was getting reimbursed on a schedule by Donald Trump at the $35,000 a month. So Cohen was asking in real time, wait a minute, just remind me, how much are you paying me again? Steinglass, the prosecutor, says, all right, we've already seen the smoking gun documents over and over again. I'm not going to pull them back up, but let's think about what's going on here. The defendant, Donald Trump, repeatedly admitted that the payments to Cohen were reimbursements, including in legal filings. And then the prosecutor showed the jury. Remember, we showed you this, Midas Mighty, those lawsuits that Donald Trump had filed against Stormy Daniels to enforce the NDA, where Donald Trump states in the legal filings themselves that these were reimbursements that were made to Michael Cohen, and thus Donald Trump should be viewed as a signatory, as a party to the NDA, such that Donald Trump can enforce arbitration with Stormy Daniels, because Donald Trump's lawyers argued in California Trump reimbursed Cohen. Cohen made the payment. Trump used the pseudonym. They paid off Stormy. So Trump suing Stormy. Stormy should be bound by the contract that Trump was bound by, which was made through the reimbursement to Cohen, who then paid Stormy. You admitted it again. So the prosecutor showed that over and over again. One of the key points that the prosecutors made is that for causation to be proved, to prove that Donald Trump caused false entries to be made, all you have to prove is that Donald Trump put it in motion, put the falsification in motion. Trump himself, under the law, doesn't have to specifically do the entry himself, as long as he put it in motion. Then the prosecutor notes that, just take a look at this. If you believe Trump's lawyers, which again, the prosecutor mocked him. If you believe Trump's lawyers that this was for actual services rendered, then why did Michael Cohen send an invoice on December 1st, 2017 for legal services rendered for the month of December, which had barely begun? But then Trump never once picked up the phone. He never once makes further inquiry, and then just signed the check 4 days later on December 5th. If services were actually being rendered for that month, why would the payment be made 4 days after the invoice? Because Trump was falsifying the records. Then you can take a look at that check, December 5th, 2017. Look who signed the check. You'll see Donald Trump's signature on it. Prosecutor Josh Steinglass says, look, he's frugal. Trump is immersed in details, and he insists on signing his own checks. Steinglass then roasts Donald Trump's defense from distancing their client from his partially ghost-written book. They want you to believe that Trump doesn't write his own books. And then the prosecutor goes, it reminds me of that quote by Yogi Berra. I didn't really say everything that I actually said. Steinglass, after reviewing a passage of Trump's book, Think Big, under the section Never Trust Anyone, says, here's what Donald Trump says about himself. If Trump is checking the invoices from his decorator, you can bet that he's checking the invoices of Michael Cohen. Here's another line from Trump's book, Think Like a Billionaire. Quote, for me, there's nothing worse than a computer signing checks, Steinglass says. That's his philosophy. Steinglass then put up that chart you see here, which shows all of the invoices submitted, all of the payments, or the reimbursements made by Donald Trump for those invoices. And then the prosecutor did something hilarious. He goes, how about Robert Costello, huh? The defense witness. When Mr. Costello testified here at trial, he told you under oath he acted exclusively in Cohen's interest. That was a bald-faced lie. He acted in a shocking departure from his ethical obligations as a lawyer. You all remember, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Costello's disdain for this court and disdain for you. Take a look at this email that Costello sent about his purported client, Michael Cohen. Quote, what should I say to this asshole? He is playing with the most powerful man in the planet. That's what Costello was saying about Cohen behind his back. And then the prosecution turned to Donald Trump's posts and tweets like this one, where Trump said, "I did nothing wrong in the horseface case. I see she showed up in New York today trying to drum up some publicity for herself. I haven't seen her or spoken to her since I took a picture with her on a golf course in full golf gear, including a hat, close to 18 years ago. She knows nothing about me other than her con man lawyer Avenatti and convicted liar and felon jailbird Michael Cohen may have schemed up. Never had an affair with her. Just another false acquisition by a sleazebag witch hunt." Very soon, it will be time for you to deliberate, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. In the interest of justice and in the name of the people of the state of New York, I ask you to find the defendant, Donald J. Trump, guilty of falsification of business records. There you have it, folks. We'll keep you posted with more here on the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 3 million subscribers thanks to your support. Have a wonderful day.
Enough! Send it to the big house, not the White House. Get the new exclusive tees, mugs, and stickers right now at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.